Welcome, bienvenidos to our first ever episode of Los Compadres of Post. My name is Joaquin Elizondo, the creator of the Hollywood Editing Mentor Program, and I'm here with my compadre, Auggie Rexach. What's going on, dude? ¿Cómo estás, hermano?
Heyo! Good, man. Super bien. Happy to be here as always. Like, I've missed you, dude. And
I know.
You know, it's funny. I'm happy to see, like I feel like for the first time in the year, like I'm seeing Joaquin. I'm not just seeing Joaquin in the pictures and the Facebook announcements and whatever. You know, I'm like hanging with my bud. You know, like what's going on, brother?
I know, dude. It's been a while. I mean, that we actually, like you said, had like a Zoom chat. We do kind of check in. We've talked a lot. Obviously, check in with each other, see how we're doing, which is great. Which kind of, I think, in a way, kind of was how this idea came out, right? It's like we kind of last year, obviously, going through heavily like through the pandemic, right? I mean, we were out of things not working, and things were kind of. I mean, it was different, right? We were kind of new into that pandemic. There's a lot more uncertainty, and we kind of we started talking a lot. You know, kind of just called each other whenever we wanted to talk, if whatever was on our mind, whether it be our personal lives or work or whatever, kind of our own support system. And he said, why don't we do something like this? Just put it out there, because maybe other people can benefit other people and get maybe some conversations going.
Yeah, man, because, again, hello to your beautiful, wonderful community. You and I sort of kind of had like this instant chemistry, like instant brotherhood that happened between us, and it was so effortless, and it happened, and it's been going on ever since. So, we had this idea to do this because I think what's important for people to know is we're two dudes, we're two human beings, you as a community leader and somebody who's like a figure in the mentoring community, a lot of times we forget that, like we forget where's Joaquin, the human being that has, insecurities or fears or things that need celebrating and that need, and same thing with me, like I'm so happy and inspired that your community has embraced me so much, and I feel a lot of love from them. But yeah, man, I'm just a flawed dude that's navigating the same waters. I might, So
yeah, well, the community definitely loves you. I see it when you pop in the office hours or the afternoon tea. It's like, oh, Augie's here. What's up?
Oh, papi, like I gotta tell you, dude, that was great last week, and for me it was very healing. Like I was going through a lot of stress, and it was one of those things that I sort of said to myself, you know what, show up. Like you got work coming out your ears, and it would be very easy to chalk it up and be like, I'm too busy, I can't go. Show up and just say hello. And I got to tell you, man, last week doing that was probably one of the highlights of my week. And it really like healed me a lot. And it helped me get through, like a really heavy week, because I don't know if it happens to you. Like on the one hand, on the A side, I love union holidays because it's like, okay, we get an extra day or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know about you, but every time we have a union holiday, I pay for it on the B side. Like that short week that we have is like,
tómala.
So I was having that because we had cuts that were going out to studio and all that stuff. And then on top of that, which again, I have to say how thankful I am, and I can finally talk about it, is that my documentary that I've been editing for the past 6 years, it's going to be in competition at South by Southwest.
Nice, dude. Congrats.
Thank you, man. It's coming out. It's called Soy Cubana, and it's about a very sweet all-female a cappella vocal group from Santiago de Cuba. And, it follows their story, and it's a very sweet film, about sisterhood and music and friendship. And so, on the one hand, it's like, oh my God, we're going to South by Southwest. It's awesome. But then it becomes like the mother of all turnovers,
The mother of all turnovers, wow.
Yeah. Like now it's a mad scramble to get the DCP for them, get the closed captioning track, all that stuff. And so I had that. And then on top of that, because of other relationships, I was working on a sizzle reel for some producers for an upcoming show. And I'm sure sizzle reels are a great way to build relationships and to, get in the ground floor with producers and showrunners and all that stuff, man. But those things are so hard, man. Oh my God, they're harder than a wedding video because everybody's got an opinion.
Harder than a wedding video. Oh my God, that's hard.
That's hard, dude.
Man, you took me back to when I used to do those wedding videos. I shot and edited them, and
yeah. And at the 11th hour, you get an email. Hey, Uncle Junie from Newark said he doesn't like that picture. You need, like really, Uncle Junie has to weigh in.
Junie. Yeah, I talk about getting notes, from the entire family.
And those sizzles are a challenge because I find that people always have a vague idea of what they want, but they don't have an execution. And so, for me, that's what separates the wheat from the chaff. Like I get to a point where I've heard enough ideas and these producers going around in circles, and I always go like, let me go away this week and put something together. And again, extrapolating from what you and I have always talked about, the ego and all that stuff, it's like, let me put something together. And I always tell them, whether it's right or wrong, I don't care, but it'll be a starting point. It'll be a concrete, tangible thing to start a conversation, and we'll get to the exact cut and the exact same video that you have. And that's what I did. I went away and put something together really crazy, and really like unhinged. And for me, in that part of the process, for me, it's great because I'm completely untethered from any notes or expectations or anything. And I just play and gave them something that, a lot of it they loved, some of it freaked them out. But we started to mold the thing, and for the past almost 2 months we've been getting it down. And to give you an idea, like the cut that I submitted of everything was like 7 minutes long, and the cut that's finally going out, it's 3:30. So you can imagine, like, I always like find that it's easier to contract something than it is to be like, okay, this is weak sauce and you need to go off again and find us more stuff. But, so that's what I've been up to, because, it's incredible. The year is already 2 months old, and, so much has happened in 2 months already. Like just seeing your community growing, man, and people are digging what you're doing, man.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I mean, I it's I doing these like I said, live office hours and afternoon tea sessions. I mean, every time I do them, there's more and more people, new members coming in, and what's great about it is that it's great seeing how these types of events, these virtual events, help community members, right? I mean, like, we actually see it happen where it's like these just random kind of, someone will ask a question, hey, like, I need help with this, whatever, like, and someone in that community, maybe if I don't have the answer or don't have maybe some type of resource to share, someone else does, right? Oh, you know what? I actually have, I know someone that does this or can help you out, or I have this document that you could check out and we could share it out to the community. I mean, it's just kind of, it's been so awesome and then getting emails from people saying, "Hey, man, like, thanks. Like, I needed this. I needed to find this community. It's just great to be part of it, to be able to meet other people during this pandemic." Right? Because I tell people, like, just because we're in a pandemic, we're not out there at actual, like, say, mixers. This is a good time to network.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good time to network. And I encourage people to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it's like also just a good moment to stop by and talk shop, and like kind of, another community member another day said, well, he was on a shoot. He was on the field. And it was very stressful. And he, I guess, popped in obviously through his phone, and he's like, "Oh, I needed this." He's like, "This is great. Gets me through the day." I'm like,
yeah,
and it kind of goes to what you were saying. You're like, I just had to come and pop in, and just need to kind of refresh my mind a little bit.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to chime in about something on the last afternoon tea, but since I was like technically playing hooky and, and on the clock, like I got called back in, and I was typing the comment, and it just remained unfinished. But this brings it to mind. So I wanted to share this little story. When people talk about networking and they talk about how do I do it and all that stuff, again, I'm so completely by the seat of my pants, and I could probably be a lot further along in my career if I had a more organized path, like a mentorship program or something. But one thing that served me very well when I was starting, when I first got to LA about 10, 11 years ago, tapeless workflows were like really taking over. Like that was like the last gasp of film. And digital cinema was taking over, and the red camera was everywhere, and the Alexa was starting to pop up, and blah, blah. So when I would go meet with producers or other editors or whatever, what I would do is I put together a little CD-ROM. And in the CD-ROM, I had a bunch of articles, a bunch of tutorials about how to transcode and bring in like tapeless workflows and all that stuff. And I would give that to them, because in the conversation, I'd be like, "How are you handling tapeless?" "Oh, it's a little confusing." And we're like, I said, "Well, I prepped this for you guys, this is like a whole, like all my research is here. Here, I want you to have it." And, there's a lot of articles in there, a lot of like how to, and what to watch out for and all that stuff. It's like a really cool, neat little package. And they all appreciate that immensely. They all appreciated that so much. So it speaks to one of the things that you mentioned last time, which was like, networking, don't just approach it from the point of view of like, what can I get for myself, or what can you give me? But go in there like with that mindset of like, what can I do for you guys? Like, how can I help? And even a small gesture like that right away tells them, "Oh man, this guy's already given back,"
Right.
And I wanted to share that, but unfortunately could not. So sharing it now.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was like something like someone I think asked, "Hey, man," he asked me like, "How do you have any recommendations for like what kind of? I have an interview next week. Any questions I should ask the employer, the person interviewing me?" Kind of went through that, and then someone goes in, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I have a post producer friend of mine gave me this document that has a list of questions and topics to bring up in interviews." I'm like, "There you go, an actual document." And then of course everyone else in the room was like, "Well, can I have it too?" And so now I'm sharing it through my website. Anyone can have it. If you go to hollywoodeditingmentor.com, you can sign up for this document, and it'll give you ideas of what to bring up, topics or questions to ask when you're being interviewed. Which is always, because they ask you, "Well, would you have any questions for me?" And then it's like, "Whoa, what do I ask?" And so this document has like just kind of gives you ideas on what to bring up specifically for like, say, assistant editors being interviewed. And actually, even if you're at an editing gig too.
Mm-hmm. Damn, I got to check that out myself.
No, I was like, hey, I'll take a look too. Let me take a
Yeah.
look.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah, man. So yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we're gonna go into in these sessions. Like I said, it's not only gonna be about just our work lives. It's gonna be everything outside of the edit room, right? I mean, we are post-production professionals, and we do have a life outside of work. And we go through things. We're not always just talking about. I think you and I probably don't necessarily talk about work.
No,
most of the time we're talking about like everything else.
Everything else, yeah, and because again, I'm a big believer in you do other things that feeds your work, and I've learned that the hard way, because I go through times where that's all I'm doing, or that's all I'm thinking about, and yeah, and it's funny, like I just posted something on Facebook and Instagram of what I did this weekend, which was like I was painting miniature dudes for my games, because I'm like, I need to kind of do something completely unrelated, and let me paint these little dudes and have some fun and just kind of be a kid again, and the other thing, and it's funny that, this is the kind of job too where I feel very fortunate, because it puts you in touch with a lot of people who are creative and who are kind of crazy in the best way. Like, I mean that as a compliment, like at the end of last year, I did a little graphics package for a commercials director who called me. She's like, can you help me with this spec spot that I have and do some graphics for me and whatever? And I did. And the spot had skateboarding. One of the women, it was some vignettes about self-care and beauty and all that stuff. And one of the ladies in the spot was a skateboarder, or is a skateboarder. And I mentioned to Jasmine, the director, I said, I've been writing this like really long board, and it's an arbor, and I like it. I cruise around. And she's like, have you tried Carver skateboards? And I'm like, no, what are those? And she's like, these are special skateboards that simulate the motion of surfing. So actually surfers use them in the off season to train, and they're like, they ride differently. She goes like, but they're so much fun. I think you'd get a kick out of it. And I looked them up, and, sure enough, over the holidays, I ordered 2 boards, one for me and one for my son. And she was absolutely right. Like, I haven't ridden anything else ever since. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm in the half pipe doing tricks and whatever. I'm just kind of cruising, mellow carving and whatever. But it's such a smooth ride, and it's so much fun, and you do feel like you're surfing in asphalt, and so those are the things that as the pandemic gets not worse, but it's obviously hasn't been a short stint that we're doing. I've become a lot more bolder about trying these things, like things that I wouldn't. 6 months ago, you would have told me, you're going to be cruising around on a skateboard. I'm like, you're crazy,
Yeah.
And I'm doing it, and it actually is a great reset for me. Like, when I'm feeling a little bit, stressed out, I take it out in the back alley and go up and down the little driveways a couple of times and carve and whatever. Feel a lot better,
That's good, man. Yeah, because it's also always good to like just. I get asked this a lot, like, what do you do to kind of like when you're feeling kind of, I don't know, not motivated or kind of low energy, what do you like to do? And I definitely, for me, it has to do a lot with being outside. It's like getting actually outside, whether it be a walk or a run. or just sometimes even not just step out just to get like that sun actually hit me.
Yeah.
Like for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And many others. I mean, I do, I guess, yeah, I do make a lot of effort to do things to keep my, to work on my mental health, my physical health, because that's what gonna gets me or push me through like those long days, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I also talk about this. People is like, even I go back to like say when I got to LA and I couldn't find any work, man. I'm trying to transition to scripted. It was tough, and so when I started paying attention to like my health, I realized I needed that so I can keep the engine going, right? Because I so many times I wanted to quit, and it was like when I started working on myself, it just allowed me to keep going and push through those hard moments.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important. That's why I like to talk about it a lot, and I think it's really important because it's like it's not directly has to do with say editing, right, or work, but it is what allows us to push through whether we're trying to move up in our career or just simply get through those long days when it gets stressful. And now let's say we're working from home, right, that we might feel kind of like, hey, like we're not going to the office, we're just kind of stuck inside the house. It can get to us, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And it's incredibly important because like the physical part for me, like I've talked about this openly before, but like I'm a morbid obesity survivor. Like at one point I was too far gone to the point where I had to have bariatric surgery to get down to even a weight where I could actually start fighting back.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about the physical component. For me, I have to say that the physical component influences for me the mental component, and that has always been the battle that rages inside of me. It's like not letting my bad habits take over, because when I have let them take over, they invariably spill over into my head and put me in some very dark places where the people around me start to get affected. And that's a big no-no, because I've gotten to that point in my life where I understand that nobody has the right, nobody was put in this earth or in this world with the privilege of making other people suffer.
Right.
Nobody has that right or that privilege. I don't care who you are. Like Chris Rock would say, ain't nobody above an ass whooping, So, what I'm saying? Like once I understood that, and having been in a position where I've been, a pretty big pill to swallow sometimes, I haven't always been the best person, and I struggle with having more patience and empathy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when I've neglected my physical health, it's actually has exacerbated that incredibly so. So for me, that's all that has become, of paramount importance, and the pandemic has given me a bit of a respite to be able to concentrate on that, where I've been using the time wisely. So those good habits are becoming much more ingrained now, where they're becoming second nature. However, having said that, because for me, it's incredibly important, like you more than me, because you're the face of Hollywood Editing Mentor, but I come in and I'm like the nosy neighbor that's always borrowing sugar, we're in a position where we are, inspiring other people and all that stuff. And for me, it's always very important for people to know and accept that, man, I'm human, and I've struggled. And I got to tell you, the past month has been incredibly tough for me on the physical level.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have felt incredibly unmotivated. Like it's been incredibly hard for me to to get my workouts. Like I've been doing my workouts and all that stuff, and but I gotta tell you, I've been grinding gears. I haven't been doing it with a lot of love or even presence. Just get through it. And I realized that it's because we've started work after the holidays, and we are entering that part of the season that happens on every show of every season of television that we all work on, where the seas get rough because you have the biggest amount of episodes that are open. The demands are more exponential than when you start the season and you're only working on one episode. Now I have 4 episodes open. And it's now you better have your sea legs under you because and because the seas are going to get rough, and not because the production is in trouble or anything like that. It's just the nature of the job.
That's what happens. That's why I always tell people, like, when I start a show, I'm like, oh yeah, I have about maybe, a month of where I can, well, when we could meet up, say before pre-pandemic, it's like, I have about a month where I can still meet for, dinner or whatever, isn't that? But come around this time, you probably won't be seeing me much after that.
Now they're shelling us and we're in the foxhole,
But that's what the job is, right? I mean, and it's like also, I think part of this, say through the podcast of sharing personal stories from, say, the cutting room, it's like to say, hey man, like, there's a reality to this gig. And it's certainly not for everyone. I mean, I don't mean to scare anyone, obviously, but I'm just saying that there are realities to it. And it's good I think it's good to be open about them, talk about them. People know how this actually works. Cause trust me, man, I haven't been working in scripted, say, in film for that long. And I thought it was different, man. I definitely discovered a lot of things that I was not expecting.
That's great that you say that because, I, like you, we were both editors for a lot of years before we got into scripted. And yeah, it is a different rhythm, and it is a different set of pressures that if I hadn't taken my time and been like, okay, I'm going to, instead of digging in and saying, well, I'm an editor and I'm not going to become an assistant and I'm not going to take a quote unquote step back, and boy, do I need to talk about this. Thank you for bringing this up. This is a conversation that I had, and this is a great subject, and this is why we're making this show. This is why we're making this content. All right, check this out.
Here we go.
This is for all my assistants out there, because I love you guys, and you guys are the best of the best. I was speaking to somebody who heard one of the podcasts that I was in, and this is a guy who is also from Puerto Rico, and he and I are contemporaries. We started at the same time in the island. We worked at different, competitors, but we were contemporaries. and for a long time, he and I sort of moved in the same circles. And when I moved to Miami, he also moved to Miami, and we were working in the post industry there. And, I moved out here, kind of lost touch with him, but we reconnected. And obviously he was very interested in learning about scripted, and because he was you've done so much, and we started in the same place, and I'm so excited about what's happening to you. And I said, well, if I can help you, I will. And I told him about your program too and all that stuff. But it's funny, when he asked me for advice, and I said, I got to keep it real, and I'm going to tell you the bare bones, the God's honest truth about this. I said, the reality is that you're probably going to have to start as an assistant editor if you want to break into scripted. It's going to be very hard to go from the world that you move in, which is like, promos and, commercials and all that stuff, to being an editor on scripted. It's, I'm not saying that it can't happen, but it's akin to winning the lotto. It's like, one or two people that have won the lotto, but most of us buy those tickets, and when we scan it, it says, sorry, not a winner.
Yeah.
So, you better like save some money. So I told him, I said, the reality is that you're going to have to start as an assistant. And again, he said this and there was no malice behind it, but it is very telling to something that I want to address. His immediate response was like, oh, I don't care. I'll do anything. I have no ego about it. And, I'll take a step back. And I said, hold on, pump the brakes, because here's something that I need to clear up. I'm not saying this because I'm worried about your ego, or I'm worried about, you taking a step back or whatever. I'm saying this because being an assistant editor in scripted and unscripted is even harder, I think. It carries with it a long list of responsibilities and skills and know-how that as an editor, you probably don't have. I know I didn't have them,
Right.
In a nutshell, here's what I need to say out loud. Just because our title has the word assistant in front of the word editor, that does not mean lesser editor. Okay? And get that through your heads, That doesn't mean lesser than.
Right.
It means we do, as assistant editors, we do a whole bunch of stuff and a whole bunch of responsibilities and tasks that are completely separate from being an editor, and these tasks and skills need to be recognized and need to be celebrated, and so, it was one of those moments where I'm like, this needs to be addressed, and that's why I feel such a kinship to other assistants, because we are asked to do a lot.
No, and I'm really glad you bring this up, because it is so true. Something that we need to talk about more, and people need to kind of understand. I hope understand. Look, I just I recently got bumped up, right? So I had just been an assistant. And I'm trying to, with my assistant now, for example, I try to take care of him, right? I understand how much work he has to do. And, I always try to, I'm just realistic with him. I'm very appreciative, obviously, what he does, but I just understand. I've been through that. I've been in that seat.
Yeah.
I've been through that process. I know what it feels like.
Right. And don't get me wrong. I'm not putting editors down. I mean, we all wouldn't be doing this if we didn't admire editors and we didn't want to be one of you guys,
Right.
So don't get me wrong, but they are different sets of responsibilities and different sets of pressures, and so, for most outsiders think that assistant editors are somehow like lesser editors. No, we're just tasked with doing things that are completely different, that if an editor had to do them, you wouldn't make your days,
Right. Something, I just thought of something that, on one of I think it was episode 2 of the Hollywood Editing Mentor podcast, I talked to Rita K. Sanders, and had her and her assistant editor on the show. Erin Wolf. But she was saying how, Rita was saying how she would always refer to Erin as her assistant editor. Well, she wasn't her assistant, right? She made it a point to say, she's my assistant editor. I remember her saying, like, she's not out there getting me coffee or, I mean, you're part of that process. You're essential. You're an essential part of the team. I mean, like we cannot do this without an assistant editor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know,
and I've been very fortunate, like the first two editors that, James Wilcox was like a central figure in my development. I always felt like that. I always felt like his partner in the room, and I think that's very important. And and having said that, on my road to becoming an editor, I'm glad that I've had to go the assistant route.
Oh yeah.
Like it really prepares you. Like I've had the pleasure of working with Tim Mirkovich, ACE, on two projects, on The Purge and a Blumhouse project. And Tim is the kind of dude who he was an assistant for many years. So I learned a ton about assisting from him, and just how even keeled he is about everything, and just calm and cool and collected, because he's done the assisting. So, he knows how to guide the workflow, and how to, if I got stuck on anything, he was there, and it was just a joy to work with him. He's another special cat.
Yeah, man. I also remember when I was starting out, when I got to LA, I remember a good friend of mine was like, hey, he's like, if you, she knew I was trying to get into film and scripted TV, and it was like, hey, so what, do you think you could just, because I was an editor, or like you mentioned, right? I was an editor for many years, had never assisted. And she was like, hey, do you think if you got a shot at editing, like you think you could do the job? And I was like, no, I don't. I actually want to be an assistant. I know I cannot go in there and be like, yeah, I got that. I got this, right? No, I actually would like to spend some time assisting or whatever, being a PA even, to learn, learn the, whatever, man, the workload, the terminology, dude, the whatever, like the environment, because something I had never done. So but that's just me. I never was like, yeah, I can do this. Like I could jump in and just do it. Now, you know what? I want to take a step back and learn.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought that I could do it. And I'm glad that I was exposed very quickly to some really fine editors, like on my first show, I got to work with Hunter Villa and Sarah Mineo and, Felicia Livingston, who, at that point was an assistant, but now she's an amazing editor in her own right. And then I transitioned into working with James Wilcox for 6 years. So that initial group of people really showed me like there's a whole other, there's a whole other rhythm to working in television, that you have to be good, but you have to be fast and you have to be accurate, and that comes with time, and it also comes with understanding how you edit for story and for character and for the language of a show. Like the most wonderful thing about having come to LA and gotten into scripted was that I finally got on the road to doing what I wanted to do, which was master my craft, or get in the way on the road to mastering a craft where I know why I'm making every cut. Like I'm not just cutting for flash, or I'm not cutting, like, let's say on a music video or on a sizzle reel because you want to pace it up or whatever. No. Through those guys and gals, I really started to understand why you cut, and why, what are the choices that you're making, and what camera placement tells what part of the story. Like at first I would see like 2 close-ups on the group, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can choose between these 2 close-ups. No, one of them, if you pay attention, one of them is over the shoulder of this other character. So that's the complementary coverage that tells the story when they're interacting. The other is addressing this other character that they're interacting with at the beginning of the scene. So you start seeing those patterns, and you start seeing why, directors put a camera where they put it, and why you should be cutting there. Not that they're like edicts or hard and fast rules, but it's a good place to start when you understand that language.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. No, again, this often comes up. It's like, I'm an editor and I want to work in. I'm an unscripted editor. I want to work in scripted. What do you recommend? I'm like, well, I recommend being an assistant. I do recommend it. Certainly a path that I took, and for me, that was always the option. I never once thought I was going to just come in there and go edit. So I always tell people, like, I do think it's a good way to learn. But and some people are like, no, man, and that's cool. Like, you know what? I don't want to be an assistant, and I get it. That's fine. But I do think that it's best to be an assistant if you want to try to transition to scripted. Or I was willing to be like I said, a PA, man. I was going to do whatever it took. I know you as well.
Yeah. It's those intangibles, man. It's like when I talk to film students, and they all want to direct and whatever, I always tell them the same thing, which kind of applies to this thing of like, I would recommend being an assistant editor. And to those people who want to direct, I always say, I would recommend that you spend at least 2 years directing and cutting your own material, because you will understand. If you understand editing, there's nothing that will stop you as a director, and a lot of them are like surprised, like, really, and I give them the reason, and the reason is like, a lot of them haven't explored this, but I'll say it here too. Like, if you really look at it, editing is the only discipline that is intrinsic to the filmmaking process. It's unique to the filmmaking process. If you're a screenwriter, fantastic. You know how to write for the screen, but you can also be writing novels, or you can be writing stage plays. If you're a cinematographer, you could be doing still photos. An actor, you can act for the stage. You don't have to act for film or television. You can act for the stage. But editing is the only discipline that is inherent to filmmaking. And as history shows, if there hadn't been breakthroughs and advances in editing, filmmaking as an art form, or as a means of entertainment, would have probably died with vaudeville, like what happened to vaudeville, or, because the first films, as we've seen, were like static shots of somebody watering their plants or a train arriving at the station. And, if there hadn't been advances in the technique of editing, I am convinced that film would have died a pretty fast death.
Right.
Cinema, or
But Auggie, you get Latinos talking in a room. We could be here all night, dude. So at some point, it's like we gotta hit the.
Yeah, we gotta hit the road. If this were a restaurant, they'd be kicking us out.
Exactly. But it's great to we had to do it, right? We had this idea for a while. We're like, dude, let's just do it. We'll figure out the time. We'll make the time, and let's get it going. I feel we just scratch the surface. There's so many things that are going to come up on this Los Compadres of Post. I hope people will tune in.
Yeah, and again, this is an organic thing. Tell us what you've been up to, what's bothering you, what's and we can talk about it. This is not just you and me, but I have to say again, it continues. You and I have the gift of gab together, and it just feels very effortless, hanging out with you. So it's great.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And it feels the same way. And yes, I agree. This is about, creating a space for this community. Like you said, to kind of just share what you're feeling, anything. It's a good place to hear, to kind of share, bring up topics, questions, anything you guys want us to talk about. here on Los Compadres of Post, definitely leave your comments down below, or send an email through hollywoodeditingmentor.com. There's a contact sheet there. But I realized you took off your glasses, dude. But tell it what I saw something different about him. I thought it was like, hey man, I like your look. But you're like, no, it's not a look. It's just like, well, you go ahead. You can tell me or tell us.
And everything looks blurry now, dude. I felt bad because I realized that I had been wearing them all throughout our first episode, and they have the Poindexter masking tape from like Revenge of the Nerds, like as if I didn't have a hard enough week this week with my regular day job, getting ready for South by Southwest, and this sizzle reel. At one point, I think it was like Wednesday or something, I'm in the middle of trying to, fix some green screens or something on one of the acts, and my glasses just popped open and this lens just flew out, and I'm like,
just out of nowhere,
just out of nowhere, and I'm like, WTF? Because I don't have a replacement pair, I never thought to do that. These are my only glasses, and without them, I'm completely blind. Not completely blind, but definitely for computer work, everything is blurry. So I'm like, trying to deliver this cut, and I try to glue them with super glue, and that didn't, and I'm like, okay, Poindexter time, So yeah, I'm
talking about the realities of this job. It'll make your glasses just explode.
So yeah, and then you tape it with masking tape. This is how real we get here at Los Compadres. It's like masking tape. It's like
It's awesome. Well, I thought, like I thought, like, I like it. That's dope. I like the look.
Dude, you're too good to me. Like, this is ridiculous, and they're all like crooked too, because like 2 years ago, I was like my son used to do gymnastics. So we were in Colorado at a meet, and I drew the babysitting task one afternoon, and I had like all these kids in the room, like I'm watching them and whatever. And one of them sort of kind of almost stepped on them, and I caught him in mid-step,
No!
But he stepped on them enough that so they're crooked. They're a disaster.
They're great, man. They're awesome. It's a look.
For all I know, all my cuts are like out of rhythm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Glasses are all messed up.
We need to review those outputs and those temp VFX. Well, and also I dig your shirt, dude.
Oh my! Thank you, man. I'm glad you brought this up too, man. If you are a Latino and you grew up in the 70s or 80s, and you were into the Fania All-Stars, this is an iconic record cover. This was like a compilation that Fania put out, the Super Salsa Singers, and it was like a parody of the Super Friends. So this is Héctor Lavoe, Ismael Miranda, Cheo Feliciano, Celia Cruz as Wonder Woman, which she really was a Wonder Woman, and Ismael Rivera, the Super Salsa Singers, dude.
That's sweet, dude. I dig it. So you're just killing it today, dude.
We kill it together, man. We get good energy, man.
Awesome. Well, hey, Auggie, as always, a pleasure talking with you, man. And I look forward to continuing this series. It's going to be great, man. We're going to have some great conversations. And so, again, dude, thanks again. Thanks again for being part of this community, dude. I mean, certainly from the beginning, you have been there. You've written articles. You were on the podcast. People check out episode 3 with Auggie. You want to know more about him. But just always thank you for your support, dude. Honestly, I'm glad that we could be still working together.
You're doing wonderful things, man, and people are responding, which is fantastic. And thank you for bringing that up. I owe you some articles, man. I was thinking about that this weekend. That there's some typing that needs to happen pretty soon.
We heard it here, guys. We're gonna get some more good articles from Auggie soon. And of course, more episodes of Los Compadres of Post. Compadre, muchas gracias. Que pases un bonito domingo, el resto del domingo. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Yes, sir.
And make sure to tune in, guys, next time on the next episode of Los Compadres of Post. My name is Joaquin Elizondo, the creator of the Hollywood Editing Mentor Program. Auggie Rexach here, our good friend, buen amigo. And we'll see you next time on Los Compadres of Post.
Cuídense, mi gente. Bye.